as always, I want to acknowledge their huge role in this film existing. They filmed the battlefield scenes and, they saved my life. And they're right now in the Kharkiv region, which is my hometown region. They're protecting my hometown from the invasion, from the occupation. And thank you for being here. And the cat is fine.
That's also. Yeah.
Nice, big, happy cat.
Well, I suppose that brings me to my first question, which is about the nature of your work and how you think about risk in what you do, how you decide, how you balance the imperative to tell the story versus the risk in documenting it. And you're a father, if it's not too personal, can you talk to us about how you discuss your work with your family, with your children? What do you tell them about what you do?
That's too personal. No, but I don't discuss it with the girls. I have a 3-year-old and 4-year-old. And I try not to scare them. And in time, what they want to know, they will know. And there are words in these films, especially in 20 Days in Mariupol, that are addressed to them. So in time, they will know. But for now, I just wanted to know, when you speak to these guys, when you speak to everyone who's been on the front line for years already or who just came, one of the most common answers to why people do it, besides they just protect their home from the invasion, is very simple motivation. There's home invasion. You have a gun. You start to protect your home. Everyone would also tell you, I don't want my children to fight this war in the future. So I do everything I can to make this country exist, to make sure their home exists and they don't have to do it. So I want to be able also to say something like that. I did everything I could to, which was in my power. And then you always doubt yourself if you're doing enough. That's all a separate conversation. But when you go there, when you go to meet this man, when you're there and I was there in summer 2023, and I was devastated by things that happened in Mariupol, that things that happened in Bucha and Kharkiv. My hometown was bombed heavily. So I was looking for a story that would tell something that would have an opposite direction. So Ukrainians not losing their homes, but trying to take it back. And this film could very well exist in the form of sit-down interviews and drone footage and body cam and helmet cam footage, and that would be also quite a strong experience. But we do go into this tragic moment, very, very intimate, tragic moment of loss and pain of families and of friends. And it's just, I think it's impossible to really be able to talk about it honestly without an element of voyeurism if you're not there. We had a screening in Ukraine, the premiere, when they saw it for the first time and their family saw it for the first time. Sheba's family and his wife came for the first time, and she saw for the first time that Sheba, it's a man who smoking a cigarette, was talking about her, and the last moments that were recorded of him. And so all the relatives came, and they got this huge round of standing applause from the audience, and all the appreciation for their sacrifice and for the courage. And 2-0, the young boy, 19 years old, who's speaking to the Russian prisoner in the very end of the film. in the final battle. He lost his legs and he couldn't stand for 10 minutes. It was very long and he had prosthetic legs. So Fedya was holding him so he could stand straight. It was a very, very touching moment. And I realized that I couldn't allow myself to stand right next to them. If I wasn't there at least for a little bit of that, if I wouldn't walk with them. And again, the dangers the pain I go through is incomparable to what they experience. But if I took on the journey of speaking for them, in this case, then I also have to live through it.
There's this fascinating emotional duality to the film in which we're both rooting for our guys and lobbying for them to beat back the enemy, and also experiencing the most nightmarish vision of combat imaginable. So it's like almost the best anti-war messaging that one can think about, and the ending in particular crystallizes this kind of duality. It's both
The final title.
right. It's both a victory and a tragedy. They win back the village of the grace of the flag, and the place is a graveyard.
Well, our village got back when the Russians occupied it again. It was like a year later, almost. I immediately thought about, there was this old film, remember, A Bridge Over River Kwai, where it was like, oh my God, this is Saint. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go on, go.
Well, my question, I mean, maybe this relates to the question, is whether between your first film and this film, you've changed your understanding or your feeling about the experience of war, if you've learned something new in making this film about the nature of war from 20 Days.
This war started for me in 2014, and I have been trying to comprehend war. Since then, I've went through Syria and Iraq and Karabakh and Gaza, Afghanistan, and in all those places, I wasn't there for the thrill. I wasn't there for money. I was there to try to just wrap my head around this part of human nature and why we all do this to ourselves, why war exists as it is. The most horrible thing there is in the human world is war. And I'm so deeply disgusted by it and allergic to it. So when I approached making this film, I of course was already feeling this duality which you're talking about. Besides that, there is also, especially now, there is feeling that the world is approaching this moment when it could all slide into war, which is bigger, God forbid, I don't want to call it Third World War, but multiplicity of local conflicts that have potential to grow into World War. And so, knowing all that and being through all those experiences, what I always wanted to do is to make a film that would say, don't do it. Like, this is not how humanity should be. This is irrational, unnecessary. But at the same time, I know if these guys will give up, my city will be occupied. If I will be in that city at the moment, it will be occupied, I will be arrested. And so on and so forth. And so my friends, and so this duality of hating war and trying to make the film that would make a case against war, but at the same time trying to make a film that would honor the sacrifice and the courage and the show that for them it's the only option. And also acknowledge the memory that remains after they die. Also, there is like a level, if you think about it, there is also a certain level of expectations of a Ukrainian society towards the work I do right now after 20 days in Mariupol. I'm very well aware that everything I say publicly or the films I do are in some way speak for the nation. I don't like that weight. It is hard to combine that weight with the creative impulse, but it exists. So all that when it came to very, very careful storytelling and crafting, and Michelle Meister, the amazing editor and producer behind 20 Days, and she worked with me on this one. She really, really helped to form that balanced view.
We'll talk about, in addition to forming the balanced view, can you talk a little, I'm interested in the filmmaking choices in your most recent film versus 20 Days. How many have seen 20 Days? It won the Oscar. Yeah. Um, what did you do to, I mean, this film shares a lot in common with your first film, and it's also very distinct. There's aesthetically, it feels different. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the creative choices that you made in this film that distinguish it from your first film.
Of course, it has the same DNA, of course, because first of all, it's the same war, and in a way, it is, as I said, I was looking for a story that will be a kind of return. But we learned a lot when we were making 20 Days, and also 20 Days was conceived as a series of news dispatches that inevitably, now I can see it as inevitable, but of course it wasn't obvious back then, they connected into a larger story and a film. This one was conceived as a film. We thought of it. I was looking for a story that could become a film, and so we just approached it from a very beginning as a film medium. And but I really wanted to be also visually different. I wanted it to be different genre. So 20 Days for us was always a horror drama, horror film. And, even the choice of a composer who has Blair Witch in his portfolio was made consciously on 20 Days, right? This one is action drama, so we approach it also from a genre perspective. Yeah, so and also
What did that mean in terms of how you shot it and how you?
yeah, the medium itself, it's not a discovery of a medium per se. This body cam or helmet cam footage is something that we keep seeing over and over in the war. It's filmed by the brigades for the battlefield analysis. They put it on the YouTube because they want to connect with their audience. But there is more to that, of course. There's more to that medium. And I think it's just such an opportunity for us as filmmakers finally not to observe the experience of the battlefield, horrifying experience of the battlefield. I always want to say experience of soldiers, but it's not that. It's experience of humans in a war. We don't just watch that. We experience it with our body. That's what's new for me. That's what's new for this genre that could push a little bit more forward. And then all these multiple perspectives that are now available to us. Even if I would be making a scripted film, I would probably not have 7 different cameras filming simultaneously on the battlefield. And yet here we do have 600 meters battle is the battle that is filmed with 2 drones, 2 cameras in the headquarters, 2 cameras on the battlefield. One of them is 360, could be reframed later. 1 camera of the medics. Mobile phone footage. All that is united and builds very different experience from how we used to think about and how we used to experience stories of war from before.
It also strikes me, you were speaking earlier about the soldiers who were defending your home and your admiration and respect for them. And I think the film has something really interesting to say about heroes. There's the character in the beginning of the film, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, who says, if we find out later he was killed, he says, "A freak, probably, your school sang you. I don't want the university." Oh, right. I don't want to be remembered as a hero.
Oh, no, that's Shiba. That's Shiba.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. And then later there's a woman who says, they say that heroes never die, but they do.
They do.
And in a way, those are sort of competing ideas. But I wonder if you have if you thought a little bit about what the idea of a hero in this scenario means to you.
I remember something I wanted to say. This connects to your previous questions, and I think if you think about it from a cinema point of view, not from a civilian Ukrainian point of view, I think each good film that I've seen in my life and the films I want to do they have paradox in them. At the core of a good film, there is always a paradox. Hence, in the core of an interesting human, there is also a paradox, right? So, telling the story of that paradox is very interesting. Because we all will consist of these paradoxes. We are inherently good, but also we are able to do horrible things. That's also paradox. We believe that we subconsciously know that many of our efforts do not matter that much, but at the same time we know there is no other way than doing it. And the idea of real heroes and real heroism, and that goes from Ukrainians that are trying to break away from the Soviet Union tradition and cinematic tradition, a storytelling tradition, a cultural tradition, where there was this very blunt, propaganda-like idea of a hero that is victorious and shiny and himself becoming the flag. But I see an idea of a hero is a person who knows that he might be facing death. A person who knows that that everything he does will return an amount to nothing, and still makes a choice to do what they do because it matters in a moment. Because they fight for symbol. They fight for hope, not for kilometers, not for ruins or villages or forests. So I think that's the real heroism, being afraid and still making that step, still doing it. Yeah.
Was it immediately clear to you when you learned about how first of all, how did you become aware of this particular fight over this little sliver of land? And was it immediately clear to you that it had this, massive metaphoric weight to it?
Summer 23 was such a crazy summer. We were here in San Francisco, in LA. We were opening a theatrical with 20 days and Barbie and Barbenheimer and everything. And, first big screenings, first was kind of red carpets. And then from those places, I would fly back to Europe, cross the border, get on a train, get in a car, get to the church, stay there for 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, get out of there, get in a car and a train, black, you back here. Somebody would ask me, I remember it was like a BAFTA tea party in LA, and somebody would come to me and say, hey, are you someone's security guard? Because I had this military coat on me, and it still had dust from the ANDRIIVKA. And the counteroffensive was going on, so I had 3 platoons that I followed at that point. One in the Kherson region, one in Zaporizhia, and one in Donbass. And I thought it's going to be a bigger story about the entire counteroffensive. But then, and things that were happening in Kherson, they were even way more dangerous than this. They never made it into a film, in fact. But when we finally met Fidya, when we finally saw the footage they were filming, when we spent time in at headquarters watching them go, and then later joining them, just seeing this map, like when I saw the map, when I saw it on the screen, this line and the village in the end of it, that's when it was clear that that's the film. It's such a, I don't want to say perfect to undermine the hardships, but from a dramaturgy point of view, having such clarity in storytelling is such a rare thing. But that's what that's what I'm looking for. A story that would be so simple that would become a symbol.
All right, I'm going to shut up and open up for the remaining time we have to questions if anyone has any. Yeah.
Hello, do you need the mic?
No, I don't need it. Okay, so here we always hear about, use the news I see every now and then, is that the Russians don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're there. They're just sent there because they have to go. And in your film, most of the Russians get killed, but there's one Russian that does get taken. And basically they ask him, what are you doing? I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. So to me, that's really a big difference, is that they have no idea, or some idea of some kind, why they're there. But the Ukrainians know why they're there. They know that they're fighting for their country. And you had one moment in the film where we were able to actually see that personally from a Russian soldier who was like, I give up. I don't know why I'm here. So is that something that you see more often there? Because we only get some of the news here, but I got to see that in your film. And thank you for making the film.
Thank you for your kind words. That is what we see often. And again, we have to be very careful in reading the voices of the people who were captured, because of course they would say things that would sound least harmful. No one would admit that he came there because he hates Ukrainians or because he likes shooting people. So that's sort of response you get from people who don't believe it, but also who believe it. And we do see a lot of Russian soldiers being there for money, because at home they were in debt. It's quite depressing situation, especially in the outskirts of Russia, because people don't have money. And so they go to fix their economical situation. Some of them really want to go and kill Ukrainians. But there are a couple interesting notes here. One of the notes I've always noticed, when the Ukrainians get one of the Russians out of the trench, they just had this shootout with a grenade and everything, and he still like points the gun in the foxhole and says, "Hey brother, are you coming out?" So there's still this. And then when we meet that Russian soldier, he can do 2-0, gives him water. The amazing thing that is a humanity in everything, even in the worst scenarios that you could not think of anything good, there is always some kind of humanity that by itself, stripped of emotion, that by itself gives me some hope. Again, that's the perspective we see. So, and it is very clear, every single man here in this film is a volunteer. They made the decision to take off the civilian clothes and just defend home.
Okay, I'm getting the signal. I see you have a question. Will you stick around for a few minutes? Maybe we could just gather as I clear on the theater. So go to the bar. Go to the heart. we'll be at the bar and we can continue the discussion there. And I think,
Are we good now?
yeah, I think we need to go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Please join us. We'll be here. We have time.
Thank you.